Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about D&D. First up, we have the newsreel. Today, I don't have any new news for you, but the D&D classes survey is still live. I honestly think it might stay live through the end of the month, even, because they're trying to collect as much feedback as possible about those original Player's Handbook subclasses that they had put out. So, if you have ever run for any class in the Player's Handbook, please go fill out that survey. It's going to help them in whatever project they're working on right now. I personally, again, think that it is a revised Player's Handbook. I don't think we're going to get a 5.5. I definitely don't think we're going to get a 6 at this point, but I have also been known to be wrong often in the past, but I think it's going to be a revised Player's Handbook. So, if you have thoughts on those, please go fill them out. I, again, have already done this because I think that a lot of the Player's Handbook subclasses have started to fall behind in power scaling, and because they wrote them when they didn't have anything to test them against necessarily, some of them have features that kind of really just fall flat, and you can review each individual feature very, very specifically as you go through it. So even if you just have thoughts on, I don't know, the Totem Warrior Barbarian, you can talk about exclusively that, and you don't have to do everything else in the survey. So again, please, please, please go fill that out. Next up, we have what streams are happening today and this weekend because it is Friday today. I actually do not know of any streams that are happening tonight on Friday, but Saturday, presumably or all of these times are going to be in Pacific time because they came from Wizards as opposed to from people who are setting up streams, but that's just a guess because they didn't actually list what time zone it was in. But Saturday at 1:30 p.m. there is the Let's Get Wildemount stream happening on the Wizards Twitch channel. I have not watched this. I actually haven't watched any of these streams, but I am excited to get to check these out to see what the dynamic is and see what sort of stories they are presenting. Obviously, that is going to be set in Wildemount, which is the setting of the second campaign of Critical Role. It's the Critical Role-based book that Wizards officially put out. And so if you have read that or watched that, you will probably come across a couple of familiar things in that one. Again, not sure, but it seems like a pretty fair, safe guess. Then following that at 4 p.m., there are the Trace Albus, which I know really nothing about other than it is presumably another D&D session because it's a 4-hour time block. Again, on Wizards' Twitch channel, so you can check them out today, or not today, tomorrow, Saturday. And then on Sunday at 4 p.m., there is D4, which again, I don't know anything about, but it sounds like a D&D stream, and it seems to be one because it's got a 4-hour block of time. So, again, on Wizards' Twitch, presumably all of these are in Pacific time because that's where Wizards is based out of. I think that they are probably their games that they are working on. But that is all of the streams that I know of for today and through this weekend. So if you are looking for some D&D this weekend, go check those out. I'm sure there are plenty of other streams happening as well, but those are the ones that I can tell you are happening. So moving along from news and streams, we go into today's topic. And as I mentioned yesterday, it is building a table. Not physically building a table, but creating your first Dungeons and Dragons table. I say first because that is probably more what I'm operating on, because once you've done it a time or two, you kind of know what you're looking for and you kind of know what you're doing. So this is geared more towards the beginners that have never had to try and put together people to play the game before. So we're going to talk about that today. Starting off strong with some numbers, because what is this game other than math with dragons and wizards? In 2017, one of the D&D executives said that they had 12 to 15 million active American players in the game. That alone is 4.5% of the U.S. population, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but New York City's population in 2020, I believe, was 8.8 million. So that is almost double the population of New York City, which means that there are a lot of players out there, because in 2020, actually, I found a statistic that shows that scaling on a worldwide scale. Apparently in 2020, there were 48 million active D&D fans across the globe. That is 14.6% of America's population. It doesn't really correlate exactly, but it serves to show that we're out there. There's a lot of people that really, really like this game and would love to play it. For a better comparison, maybe not, the Super Bowl in America gets on average about 100 million viewers. There are 48 million D&D players across the world, which means that there are half as many people across the world that play D&D as there are people across the world that sat down and watched the Super Bowl, which seems like not that much, but the Super Bowl is one of the largest sporting events in America, at the very least, and I know plenty of people that watch it outside of America. It's definitely not as widespread as like the World Cup or something, but it's a singular game that people tune in for, and so that's not an insignificant number. Next up, we're going to talk about the actual cost to start. Again, numbers, because we like numbers here, right? The cost to start a D&D game seems like it should be a lot, right? It seems like it should be like hundreds of dollars for all of the books, the dice, the maps, the minis, everything like that. When you really, really, really don't need that, you can start playing D&D with official Wizards material for as little as like $20. That's really all it takes. The starters kit and the essentials kit both cost $20 or $20 or $25. Can't remember which one is which, at like Target or your local game store, and they go on sale a lot, like a lot. It seems like, so you can pick them up sometimes for as low as like $13, and that gives you a dice set. It gives you an adventure. It gives you character sheets. It gives you pre-generated characters because it's built for people who have never played the game before, who want to start playing the game. And the starter set has what is widely regarded as one of the best adventures that Wizards has put out. That might be a little bit steeped in like faux nostalgia almost, because the Lost Mines of Phandelver are where a lot of people started playing D&D because it came in the starter set. So it, makes sense. Logic follows there. But it's a lot of fun. It's a good, simple, low-level adventure. It comes with a mini rulebook so that you can understand what's going on, and you can sit down at a table of entirely new players and just get going. And that $20 price tag is assuming that you don't have a friend that you can just borrow the books from, or that you're not going to start a table with an experienced player who has some of the books. Like, people have the books just already all the time. People might have them digitally, they might have them in print, but they're floating around everywhere. I personally, in this house, have 3 copies of the Player's Handbook because one of them started to fall apart. I bought one for my fiance, and I got myself a replacement for the one that was starting to fall apart. So we have 3 copies in this house for the 2 of us. I'm happy to loan out one of them to anybody that asks me for it because I just want people to be able to play the game. So the cost to start is really, really, really not that high, which is actually great because for a while, one of the biggest arguments against it people had were the cost prohibitive factors that go along with a game that is based in, $50 hardcover books. So you can get started for cheap, and once you get started, you can keep playing and never have to buy anything else again, because you can get digital dice. And by get digital dice, I mean there are free dice rollers on the internet. Trust me, the click-clack sound is worth the like $7 for a set of dice if you're going to play a lot, but to each their own. And you can just start homebrewing stuff. You can just make stuff up as you go. You don't have to be super stringent with everything that happens. So you can just sort of start too. If you can borrow the stuff, you can start for free. And nobody's going to knock you for that because you're just playing the game at that point. And that's all it really is. We just want people to play the game. To actually start up the table, you're likely going to need somewhere between 4 and 7 players, probably 4 and 6, or 4 and 7 people, probably 4 and 6, to actually begin playing, because you will need your set of players and your dungeon master, which is why I had to correct that. official recommendation is somewhere between 3 and 5 players for a campaign, for a table, which is fair. When you get more than that, it becomes like a heavy sort of lifting act on the DM's part to make sure everybody's getting playtime, everybody's getting in the spotlight, everybody is getting what they want to out of the game. And less than that, and it becomes a lot of work on the DM to try and make sure that they're not going to just outright accidentally take out the players. And the players then feel like they are inadequate a lot of the time because there aren't that many classes you can play that go well in a pair that complete a D&D party. You're always going to be missing something, pretty much. So find yourself 3 to 5 friends and sit down and start playing. I always recommend that at the beginning you set up a DM rotation. So if all of you are new, none of you ever played before, sit down, set up a Dungeon Master rotation. Because that way, everybody gets the experience of running the game. And I think it's really important for everybody to have the experience of running the game at least one time. Because it really helps build at least a little bit of, I don't want to say sympathy, because it's not really sympathy that you're looking for, but it gives you the perspective of the other side of the screen that you can remember when you're playing, then back on the opposite side, either as the DM being a player or as a player being a DM. So make sure everybody gets a chance. Now, if you have somebody in your party who is experienced in playing and is more than happy to DM for you, great. Run with it. They will be a phenomenal guide on how to get things the way that it needs to be, at least in their style. Every DM has a different style, and that's another reason that having a DM rotation is good. It lets you see how different people will work, and it lets you work with different people so that you're not sitting and then becoming frustrated because suddenly it's not working out the way that you think it should just because you've never played with anybody else. I also think that it's very important to say that at the beginning, don't worry too much about the rules. Just don't. Like, I love the rules because I have read the books more times than I probably should, and I've been playing this game for years now, and so I really like to go in and like find the little bitty things that I can pick at and the little pieces that really make the game tick in my mind. But don't worry about the rules. It's about just sitting down and playing, right? So if a ruling is missed or something like that, it doesn't matter. Just move on and do the next thing. It is easier that way. It's more fun for everybody, so you don't have to sit there and flip through the books. But again, the starters set and the essentials kit have many rule books in there, and they give you pretty much just the rules you need. But even those, you can kind of toss out if they don't suit what you're trying to do. So don't take the rules too seriously. Don't take the game too seriously, because it is ultimately a game. If you can, I would suggest trying to pick up a veteran player or DM for like a one-shot or something, just to give you an idea of how the game works in the hands of somebody who either knows how to do what they're doing or with somebody around the table who knows what they're doing that can help guide everybody else along. If you look at the origin story for Critical Role, a lot of them had never played before, and one of the reasons that like Taliesin was brought in to really help play, his original character was I want to say a Dragonborn Paladin. He helped all of the new people really understand how to play the game because he was one of the more experienced ones at the table. And actually, there's nothing wrong with inviting somebody in for a one-time session. Just make sure they understand that it's like, hey, we're going to try this game. Do you want to come play? We're going to give it a shot and see what happens. We're going to just see if we like it or not. This isn't like a long-term campaign. This is just sort of a one-shot. Because if you start up with the expectation of it turning into a campaign, it can become disappointing to people if it doesn't continue. So make sure that you set your expectations early. That's all about session 0, which is a whole nother topic, a whole nother story that I'll cover some other time, I'm sure. The last thing about actually assembling your table is that the people around the table need to understand that while it is a game, while it is fun, there is a lot of commitment that goes into it, because DMs and players alike will put a lot of extra time and work into their game. And so you should really, really be expected to commit to a game time, preferably weekly, preferably bi-weekly, whatever works for your group best, just because it's about respecting the time that other people put in, because people will put in hours and hours, especially if it's a long-term campaign. DMs will spend a few months ahead of time sometimes writing out. You definitely don't have to do that. You can sit down and run it off the top of your head the entire time and have it be a phenomenal campaign. I just know that there are people that sit down and start planning months ahead of time. So just make sure that everybody understands that it is a commitment, because sometimes people just want to hang out and have fun, and maybe they don't care if it's D&D. Maybe they care more if it's just like board games or something with their friends, and that's what they're there for. And that's great, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just you want people who are going to show up regularly for your D&D games, because it sucks when they don't. So the biggest question I get, outside of the normal questions from new players when they're starting their first game, is, should I do research ahead of time? And I always say, yeah, probably. Let me send you some stuff. Because the thing is, doing research ahead of time is great. You should research things that you want to do, because that's how you know if you're going to enjoy them before you get into the room. Because if you don't, then you're going in blind, and it can be kind of a mess. But you should do informational research ahead of time. Meaning you should look up stuff about the class you want to play. You should look up stuff about the race you want to play. You should look up stuff about how to build a character. You should look up stuff that tells you about the mechanical bits of the game. There's a channel here on YouTube called The Dungeon Dudes. They have phenomenal informational videos. They do class breakdowns. I send all of my new players to them. Whether or not they watch it is up to them. But they are so good, and they put it in really, really well executed simple terms, so that people who are not familiar with the game's like vernacular, they don't have to, sift through a bunch of crunchy stuff, because they just sort of lay it out for them. Because doing anything other than informational research is potentially going to shoot your game in the foot before it even gets off the ground. Don't go watch actual play shows ahead of starting to play your own game. I did not, and I'm so glad that I didn't, because this is one of the things that the internet likes to talk about all the time. The Matt Mercer effect, the Brendan Lee Mulligan effect, the insert famous DM here effect. All of these people have massive production budgets behind them. They have casts of hyper experienced players, or players that are literal professional actors or writers or things like that. So they are so well versed in improv, so well versed in how the game works. And that is just an unreasonable comparison to draw early on in your game process. After you've started, and after you have gotten into it a little bit and understand the game and everything like that, be my guest. Go watch some actual play stuff. I think that it's great to engage with the larger D&D community in that way. And there are so many people that stream their games, and the big ones are big for a reason. It's because of their production quality, because of the stories that they tell, because of everything surrounding them being so high quality. And none of that is to say that a home game cannot or will not be high quality, because who was it? I think it was BDW. I think it was Brian David Walters, who said that no, you, being the you of everybody at home, cannot do what I do, can't do what Matt does, can't do what Brendan does, can't do what Abria does. I pulled those names out of the air. I know he said Abria. I don't know if he said the other two. He said, no, you can't do what we do. That is true. But also, we can't do what you do. So tell your stories and be he didn't say be psyched about it, but that's the gist that he went for. Like, tell your stories, be excited about it, have fun in your game. There is no reason to compare yourself directly to these people with decades of experience, with production behind them, with, you know, literal career paths in storytelling. That's not always how it goes. And if you try and hold your DM to that standard, you should also bring the standard of the players around there. But even so, you shouldn't do that. It's not a healthy way to operate around a table. So please don't. Again, phenomenal to engage with the community in that way after you've started playing, I think. The last thing about doing research ahead of time, I would say, is just talk to experienced people. Like, talk to the experienced people that you know. Because I promise you, you know at least one experienced person in Dungeons & Dragons. Whether you realize it or not. Because, again, 48 million people worldwide. Million people. That's so many people. And in the grand scheme of the population of the world, maybe it's a small fraction, but that's still so many people. Find somebody, ask them questions. Honestly, we like new people, so we might be a little nervous about it because for a long time it's been not the greatest thing to be a nerd, but that's changing. Thank you to the large studios and productions and everything like that that have helped that change, because it's making life easier for little baby nerds everywhere. So, if there are 3 major takeaways that I want you to have from this video, from me rambling on about how to put together a table, they are: there are more of us than you expect, and we like new people. Like literally what I just said right before I started talking about takeaways. There are plenty of us, and we like new people. Ask us things, please. We will try and take new players under our wings as much as possible. Because ultimately we just want more friends to play the game with, and the more people we know that play the game, the easier it's going to be for us to build a table in the future. You really don't have to take it too seriously. It is a game. But also, take it seriously, because it's a lot of work. It's a great game. It's a fun game, but it is a hard game and a lot of work to do the game. So don't take yourself too seriously when you're doing it, but take the game seriously enough. And finally, of course, have fun with it. I know I just said that in the last one, but I cannot stress enough. Have fun with the game that you're playing, with your friends, telling stories. You can't win the game. You can't lose the game. Just play the game and have fun with it, because it's so fun. To quote Liam O'Brien, it's the best game. It's so much fun. And if ultimately you find out that D&D is not for you, there are dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of other TTRPG systems out there that one of them will be right for you and your table. One of them you will find that you adore, and that can be what you play. It doesn't have to be D&D, but the same sort of rules apply that I just laid out. Just have fun with it, okay? That is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in and making me part of your morning routine. Have a phenomenal weekend. Please like, follow along, subscribe, so that I can keep doing this for longer, and the more of you that do, the more I'll be able to do. So, again, have a great weekend. Be nice to each other. Go play some D&D, and keep on rolling.